Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Inside Out lecture for 2021 at Leeds Beckett University. My name is Professor Robert Shale, and I'm delighted that you can be with us today. The purpose of the prestigious Inside Out lecture series has been to bring the best creative minds to inspire and support the work of students and staff across the School of Arts at Leeds Beckett. To this end, we invite renowned speakers from across the globe. Previous guests have included the Turner Prize-winning artist, Martin Creed. Normally, we make the lecture series open to the general public in person here in Leeds, and then through a video recording, which we make available to an international audience online through the website of the Leeds Arts Research Centre. In response to the global pandemic, we have now brought the series entirely online and are excited to make the lectures available live to anyone around the world who wishes to join us. It's a particular pleasure today that our first speaker of the year is one of our own, a graduate of the Northern Film School. I'm now going to hand over to Annabelle Pangborn, who is director of the Northern Film School, to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Fabian Wagner.
Hello everyone and welcome. So we're incredibly excited that Fabian has been able to find the time to join us today, and thank you, Fabian, for making the time for this. We've sent out an awful lot of publicity about this masterclass, but I just want to pick up on a few of Fabian's credits. So some of the most recent, and these are names which I know you all know: The Crown, Game of Thrones, Sherlock, Overlord, Wallenser, The White Queen, The Accused. One of the earlier things he worked on, Spooks. If you go onto IMDb, you'll see the many credits of all of the films and shows that Fabian has worked on. He's also got a whole slew of awards from the American Society of Cinematographers, also OFTA, the Online and Television Association, also Emmy nominations. We're incredibly proud that Fabian studied at the school quite some years ago now and is out there working in the industry and also supporting up and coming talent with his mentoring through BAFTA. Welcome, Fabian. Let me also introduce Mark Carey. Mark Carey is our head of cinematography in the Northern Film School, also a cinematographer in his own right. And he's going to be interviewing Fabian and handling all the questions. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Annabelle. So welcome, Fabian. Welcome everybody to this fantastic session from Mark this afternoon. I would like to say that you can submit your own questions, and there is a link that has been up on the screen, which is at www.slido.com. And when you see that link, it is IO-Fabian Wagner, not 10, it's IO, just in case there's any confusion about the typing in of that. Please do get your questions in. We would love to have those there. And there is somebody's already asked, will it be recorded? Yes, I believe it will be recorded. Now, we've got an exclusive start to this, a fantastic start. Fabian has agreed to show his new showreel, which we can see some of his latest, and it's most amazing and beautiful work. So we're going to show the showreel now, and then we'll start the Q&A with Fabian.
We'd like to ask you some questions.
was incredible. Fantastic work, and really, really quite stunning. I hope it played well for everyone. I know my team's glitched slightly, but when it did catch up, really, really brilliant. Fabian, we will come back to talking about the reel and what's in there and why you've made your creative choices with the reel. But if I believe you've got some photographs to show us and perhaps to tell us about your journey from when you first started with perhaps with an interest in filmmaking through the Northern Film School to where you are now. And maybe now would be that moment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for inviting me and for this nice intro. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll just try and keep this short because I guess it's quite boring. But basically, I was born in Munich in Germany and started sort of wanting to get into the film industry very, very early. I must have been about 14 when I decided that I would like to become a cinematographer. I sort of realized that there's a job there. I used to do a lot of photography through my dad. Really, my dad was a painter, but he was taking lots of pictures. So he kind of introduced me to the whole photography side of things. And I sort of very quickly developed a love for that. When I was 16, I started to work on short films for the Munich Film School. And then did that for a couple of years while I was finishing school. And actually, after school, applied to the Munich Film School, which was a very tough process back then. I got through the first 2 rounds, and there was, I think, 10 people left, and I think they chose 6 out of those 10 people, or 4 maybe, I can't remember. And they turned me down then, which was a big blow, obviously, when you were sort of 18, hoping to do something. I always call it was the best. I always say it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because in my heart I knew that I didn't really want to work in Germany. In my heart I knew that I wanted to do something more international. And I've been to England many times because my mum's good friend was from England. Her son was my age, so we used to visit each other in the summer holidays. And I had a great love for the UK. And so after a year in Denmark at the European Film College, which was a great time, and after that I probably went back to Germany for about a year to work as a loader and then a bit of a focus puller. I decided that I should move away and I should move to the UK, and yeah, applied to the Northern Film School, which very luckily accepted me, and I guess that's where I kind of started. So I'm going to share my screen now, because it's really more about a few people that I wanted to sort of mention throughout this way. So this is just a very cheesy picture of me. This was my first ever short film. Is this working? Mark, can you tell me if this is working? I can't see you, so.
1 moment.
Yeah.
No, not as yet, Fabian.
Not as yet. Okay, sorry, let me just check.
Sorry, my replies are a bit slow. The turning the mute off takes forever for some reason.
Oh, sorry, I've got it. Oh, this one. So is that working now?
Yes, it is. We can see that now.
Great. Now I've lost it, sorry. You can see it, you said?
Yeah, so we've got that early one, that first film, with you sitting behind the camera, wearing a black top.
Okay, great. So yeah, this is just a very cheesy picture. This was actually in Germany. This was my first ever short film that I got asked to DP, which was actually quite a professional kind of job. It was funded by some funding organization, and I guess, I mean, I must have just turned about 19. I was super proud, obviously, that they had actually asked me to do this. I never thought this was like the first professional one that I did, and yeah, then I came to the UK, and this is an old friend of mine, Andy Upton, who was directing. So, but before this, we were. I was at the Northern Film School. I had a great time at the Northern Film School. I met some great people, and people that I still work with today. And I think that's one of the things that makes me think most fondly back at this time when you meet a great bunch of people. We always have a great time together, and we were just shooting a lot. We were having a lot of fun. And generally, those 2 years at the Northern Film School was just a great time. I met some very creative people there, like Mark Wordsworth, who's still a good friend of mine. We did lots of music videos together. Sam Donovan was the director, who is probably my best friend, and we've just worked together again. And it's just, it shows you how important this time is, I guess, in your life and also in your career. Especially when you're at the film school and you're meeting people. So while I was at the Northern Film School, I think we were shooting a lot of short films, doing as much as we could possibly. And when the time at the film school came to an end and I had finished my masters, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I wasn't sure whether part of me wanted to stay, the other part of me thought, well, maybe I should go somewhere else. And I was looking around, and my friend Marco, who was with me at the film school, a very good director, he actually pointed out that there's a company in Leeds, very small company, they were called Mezzo Films. They were doing sort of small commercials and corporate videos mainly. They were looking for an in-house cameraman, and having just come off the film school, I was pretty broke. I thought, well, I wanted to stay in Leeds, so why not apply to this job? And so I applied. It wasn't obviously what you have in mind, first of all, when you sort of come from a film school where you're dreaming of making movies and TV shows and everything. But I applied, and they actually took me on as their in-house cameraman. And what turned out to, or what started as sort of a very normal kind of job, became actually something that was really valuable to me, because there was a bunch of people of my age, and it was editors and a lot of people there, musicians, and we sort of came together and we were just doing stuff. I said to the boss of the company, look, when I'm not shooting for you guys, which was normally Monday to Friday, I would like to use the camera that we have at the company on the weekend to do my own stuff. They agreed, which was great. So I always had a camera for free that I could use. And it also gave me a lot of confidence, shooting those corporate videos, which creatively was nothing that I wanted to do, to be perfectly honest. What it did give me, it gave me a lot of confidence, because I was working with people every day. I was operating a camera every day. I was looking through a camera every day. I was framing things up. And even though I was dreaming of bigger things, it gave me that sort of really good grounding. Every day I was working with a camera, and on the weekends we were doing much more creative stuff, and it was a really, really, really fun, great time. And here you can see we were shooting small-time corporates. This was our video village basically. We had the small monitor on a trolley. We had the old doorway dolly with a tripod on it. But it was just a nice bunch of people, and most of those guys and girls are still good friends of mine now. So it's always nice to look back. We were also shooting a lot of film back then, Super 16. This was actually a commercial for Cost Cutter, I believe. That was like one of the bigger jobs that we had for this company. So that was great fun, and it was a great opportunity for me, because they gave me the chance to actually shoot that as a DP. So it was a good learning ground. And at the same time, I was making as many short films and other projects as possible. So this is probably one of my favorites ever. This is from a shoot called Hammerhead, which was directed by Sam Donovan, which actually became a very successful short film. I just remember this so fondly this time. We had a great time up in Bridlington, shooting on the beach for 10 days. And, I think about this time very, very often. And we were doing crazy things like car stuff, where you sit in the boot of a car, or where you strapped onto the bonnet of a car, which is probably something that I wouldn't do anymore today. You wouldn't be allowed, or you wouldn't get away with that anymore. I'm a bit wiser now as well. But that was a music video for Mark Wordsworth, for example, for a really great band. And yeah, again, it was as dangerous as it looks, but it was a lot of fun. And I met some great people there. For example, here, this is Tom Salmon. We were shooting another film by Sam Donovan called King Ponds, which was also great fun. Tom Salmon is from Sheffield, and he was my gaffer back then for a long time. And he's also become a great, great friend. And we're still in touch now, even though we haven't worked together for a long time. We're still in touch, and it's always lovely to catch up with him. And there's many more people who, there's Sam here. We had some kind of cheap Steadicam rig for King Ponds. Sam looks very happy with it. There. Here, this is during King Ponds, where he likes to tell me what to do. We've just done The Crown together a couple of years ago, him directing 2 episodes of The Crown. So it's very nice that, you know, our friendship has lasted this long, and we still work together now. It makes me very, very happy. Another very good friend of mine, and another person I work with a lot, and probably, you know, he's probably one of the guys that you guys know up there in Leeds. Borja Berestugeta. He's an incredible focus puller. Now he was on the camera back then, and this must have been 2007 on Hammerhead, and he's just pulled focus for me on the last season of Game of Thrones. And so, you know, again, this cycle comes together. There's Tom scratching his head about some short film that we were doing on a beach somewhere up north. And then came really my first sort of break. I left the corporate company after a year, because at the same time I was working for them, I was doing other things like short films, music videos on the weekends. I started to do some second unit for TV dramas up in Leeds. And I became quite well known for that kind of stuff. So I had more and more phone calls for doing second unit, which is really something that I wanted to do. And so I left the company after a year and focused on being freelance and doing second unit. I then had sort of my first break as a main DP in 2008, I think, 2007, 2008, when a London company called Kudos came to Leeds, and they were shooting a spin-off of their very successful primetime show Spooks. And they came up to shoot the show here, 10 episodes in Leeds. And at that time, you know, I was, like I said, I'd done second unit and operating and stuff like this. And they came up there to interview some local people. And I went into the interview and meet the producers. And, you know, I said, look, guys, I live in Leeds. I'm here. I love shooting. I love to do stuff. I'm happy to do second unit. I'm happy to operate the camera. You know, whatever you want, I can do. And at the end of that interview, I said, but what I really want to do is I want to DP my own show. And I've got my show right here. It was a DVD. And I said, I would love you to look at it. And because that's really what I wanted to do. And I walked away, having left my DVD showreel behind, and had a phone call a couple of weeks later from Chris Fry, the producer, saying that him and Brendan Marr, the director, who I'm also still friends with, would like to give this a try, and they're going to give me a chance, and they want me to be the DOP on this show. And that was a huge step for me, and it was a big step for them, trusting someone that young. I mean, I must have been, I don't know, 28, 29, something like that. So it was a big thing for me and for them. And I had Borja working on this show too, amongst many other people who are still friends of mine up in Leeds. And yeah, that was sort of the start of my career. And Kudos, after that job, was very supportive of me. They are generally a very loyal company. And after that, they were happy with what I did. they basically rotated me through all of their shows. So over the course of 3 years, I was doing all the primetime shows, which were very successful back then, from Spooks to Hustle to Ashes, to The Fixer. And that was a really great learning ground. It was, shooting multiple cameras, shooting very fast TV. Obviously, back then we were shooting mainly Super 16 or 35. So it was great to shoot film back then. And I just learned a lot, and I had a lot of support from people up north. Howard Dawson, Howard, who ran the Northern Film Lab, was very supportive of me and my career. Provision and all the guys at Provision were incredibly supportive to me and my career, and I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without any of their help and support. At the same time as well, Lisa Knight and Laura Taylor asked me to come and do a class for the, I think it was the undergraduates. So for about a year or so, I was doing that course as well at the same time, which was an interesting experience because I was still young. I'd only just finished my master's, but it actually, I learned a lot during that time. And again, I met many people. James Bridger is one of them, who is now a very accomplished gaffer. And I made a great bunch of friends. And then came Sherlock, and Sherlock sort of changed my life, I guess, or my career, really. I was still living in Leeds at the time. Sherlock changed my career. Sherlock came sort of out of the blue. I was contacted by the producers. They must have heard about me somewhere. The director didn't know me. I had a chat with, I had a meeting with Paul McGuigan, who was the director. He was the director on season 1 as well, and this was for season 2. And so we met, and he offered me the job. And Paul was had a huge impact on me and my career. We had a bit of a rocky start on season 2 of Sherlock, but we finished on a high, and we had a great time together. The last episode that we were shooting was Scandal in Belgravia, which became sort of quite famous, I suppose. It was also my first Emmy nomination, which obviously sort of kind of opens you up to the world a bit. So that kind of opened me up to America, and especially with Paul, having been being a very accomplished director, he then took me on to other jobs. He also gave me my first movie break, Victor Frankenstein, which was a pretty big $35 million film for 20th Century Fox. Didn't do so well with the critics, but I actually really enjoyed it, and it was good fun to shoot. So I'm very thankful to Paul. We've become good friends, and we're actually hopefully going to be working together again soon, which would be very, very nice. He also took me to the States quite a bit. I spent a few years in America and Canada doing a lot of pilots with Paul, which was great fun. And then came the second sort of big step in my career. Through the Emmy, through the success of Sherlock, literally came Game of Thrones, because David and Dan, the two showrunners of Game of Thrones, loved Sherlock and they loved my episodes. And so I had a phone call while I was shooting in, I believe it was in Vancouver, saying that they would love for me to come on. So I joined them for season 4, and yeah, I mean, that again, I guess you can say literally changed my career. I had a great time on Thrones from every standpoint, personally and professionally. I met some amazing people, people that I work with all the time. I brought in old people that I used to work with, and you know, the scale that Game of Thrones has, you know, you learn a lot of things. This is actually episode 5 on season 8. You know, you grow with every project, but Game of Thrones was really something that kind of puts you into a different mindset, and at the same time you're having a great time. So I ended up doing 4 seasons just because I was just looking forward to coming back every year, and I knew that every year would be different, and I knew that every year would be bigger, and I knew that, well, hoping that every year would be better. That's debatable, I guess, from a fan's point of view. But professionally, for me, it was definitely an amazing time, and I loved every moment of it. And you know, I met people like Ian Mars here, the handsome fella there in the shirt on the right. He was the DIT on Game of Thrones, and he's been my main DIT on every job since. We've developed a great friendship and a great relationship, and he's certainly for me the best DIT I've ever worked with, and he makes my work better, I think, you know, and I love working with him. There's obviously I had to do the throne picture. That was something you gotta do. This is Battle of the Bastards, which was for us again, for me personally, I guess, a big break. Battle of the Bastards was my ASC nomination, and actually my ASC win for the American Society of Cinematographers. So that was a big thing for me, because that's a society that I've always admired, and I guess always wanted to be a part of. And I did get accepted into the BSc a long time before, which was also a great honor, but the ASC, that was really very, very, very special, and I think it was 2015 or 16. And this is just some examples of the huge setups that we have on Thrones. You know, it's a bit of a crazy world. On the left there, looking at the paper, you can see Miguel, who's again also become a very good friend of mine. Great, amazing director who I've done all the Game of Thrones episodes with. And there's a few other ones here working in the mud, as you can see, in Ireland. Another big part of my career is this guy here on the right, Jamie Phillips. So I met Jamie in 2009, I think it was, or 2008, when I was doing Ashes to Ashes, and he had just stepped up from loading to focusing the B camera. And as I was operating the B camera, we obviously got to know each other then. And Jamie has been one of my closest friends and my main focus puller for, well, since then. And he's been on most of my jobs, obviously, apart from the ones that I was abroad for. Or I couldn't take him on, but most of the jobs that I've done, Jamie has been with me. And again, it's the same with him as it is with Ian Mars or my gaffer, any of the gaffers I work with. They make you a better cinematographer. I absolutely love working with Jamie, and I always feel more at ease when I've got him with me. There again is Battle of the Bastards. It was quite a big undertaking, tricky show, but it paid off. We had our Emmy, so that was nice. Made everyone very happy. I just love this picture. It's a bit of a crazy setup. Game of Thrones is all about soft light. This is, I think, an extreme example of soft lighting. It literally couldn't get any softer than this. And you know, the scale, you know, you just learn a lot about scale. Like I said earlier, I come from very low budget filmmaking, and I still love doing that too. But it's great to experience the other side of that scale. And there he is, Borja, on season 8, looking very happy, even though he had a really tricky job. It was a very tough shoot. We did the 55 nights, and then we did another 50 days after that. It was pretty full on and tough. Not an easy job for anyone, and especially not folks. But that was my ASC award, so that was a great moment. I loved that. And that was the end of Thrones with Maisie there and her dead friend. That was Thrones, and then came the next. Oh no, this is another fella here from Leeds on the left. That handsome guy is James Bridger. Now James again is one of those people, and I guess I'm introducing those people because I want to make obvious how important it is to meet people and make friendships with people who you are on the same wavelength with. because you will work with those people for the rest of your lives, and it's great, you know. James and I, again, we met in 2004 probably, and we did a lot of stuff together. This was actually on a low-budget film called Barney Thompson, with Bobby Carlyle directing, and Emma Thompson and Ray Winston. And James, I asked James to gaffer it, and he did a fantastic job, and he's taken off since then, and he's been very, very busy gaffering all throughout the UK. And I'm very glad and happy to say that he's now going to come back and be a gaffer on my next show again. So I'm just trying to, you know, it's nice, you know, it's nice to stay in touch with people and work with people who, you know, there's Bobby and the other guys. And then came this kind of beast, which kind of came out of the blue for me. I never expected to get a phone call from Zack Snyder. Oh, that was my first board with the ASC, so that's yeah, Zack Snyder called out of the blue for Justice League, which was another scale up from Game of Thrones, or maybe another 10 scales up from anything that you can ever dream about, really. And again, it was just a great experience. It literally was something that I didn't expect to happen. I think I fell off my chair when they offered me that job. So here's just a few small pictures from Justice League and the sets that we were building and shooting. And so, yeah, so suddenly you end up on a backlot like this, which can be pretty daunting, but it's also a great fun. There again, Jamie there. I had Jamie on my camera, which was great. This is a fun setup. This was in Iceland, actually the end of the UK stint of our shoot. We found a location which was impossible to get to by car or any other means, so the only way to get there was to fly up there. So this technocrane and everything had to be flown up by helicopters over the course of 3 days, then built it, get it all ready, and then we shot it for a day. This is for a small shot of the opening sequence. Pretty insane, really, when you think of it, but there you go. Batman didn't turn up that day, but there he is. So yeah, it's all these. This was a long shoot, 125 days, but with a lovely crew, and the actors were great, and it was just great to work with someone like Zack, who's such an accomplished and visionary filmmaker. We're shooting 35, which was nice, because obviously now a lot of the stuff that I've done had been digital. Still trying to shoot film a lot, as much as possible, but digital is definitely more prominent right now. And there's Emma at the wrap of Barney Thompson, which was nice. Don't know what that is. That was some commercial, I think. And then comes The Crown. And so The Crown was a very nice job that kind of happened unexpectedly for me, because I knew that Sam was doing it, and I was at that time on a different job. I couldn't do it because I think he'd asked me to come and do it. I couldn't do it. And suddenly things shifted, turned around, and suddenly I was like, Sam, actually, I'm available. What do you think? And suddenly we were working together again on The Crown, and it was really, really nice. Really, really nice. And this I just wanted to put in because there was a big movement going on about crew and film crews. A very good friend of mine, Mark Milsom, who was a very good camera operator. He operated for me on Sherlock, for example. He died 2 or 3 years ago, tragically. Well, no, it's actually 3 years ago now, on a film set during a stunt. And it was a terrible incident, and it should never happen, anything like this. And so there was a big movement going on about crew matter and safety on set. It's a big thing, so I just wanted to throw that in there. And I think that's it. This is up to today. Now I just have to find out how I get back.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And actually has answered many of the questions I had already. Now, the good news is there are loads of questions coming in through the Slido. Thank you to everybody who's putting the questions in. We will try to get through as many as we can. Keep them coming. And if you've got favourites, do vote them up. There's a little vote system in there, so you can vote your questions up. But before we go there, I just want to pick up on a couple of things you've touched on there, and actually because they're being asked in the questions as well. But could we go back to Game of Thrones and a sort of two-part question about Game of Thrones for you, Fabian? One is that a lot of it is lit, or apparently lit, by candles and by fire. And could you talk about that a little? And then perhaps take us a little bit into what happened with Hard Home, and where you were, I believe you might have having to be lighting night to day because of your limited hours. So maybe you could tell us about those a little.
Yeah, I mean, Thrones looks like it's being lit by candles and fire, but there's a lot of firepower involved behind the scenes. So no, I mean, there's a couple of scenes that we or some of us DPs have shot purely with candles, but mostly it's enhanced by something else. But obviously, it looks like it's just candles. But the lighting list on Thrones is pretty extensive, and when I first saw it, I was kind of scared, I guess. So I didn't quite understand the question about Hard Home. What can you say that again?
Yeah, I'd watched something that had implied to me that you had run short of light, and that you'd actually had to light as if it was daytime when you were heading into the night because of the number of hours you had in the day.
Yeah, that's right. It was a pretty tricky schedule. It's funny because with Thrones, having a budget like on Thrones, which is obviously pretty big, you would think that you would have a bit more time, but you absolutely don't. You shoot non-stop, and you shoot from the moment it goes light to the moment it goes dark. And yeah, when we were doing Hard Home, I believe it was probably sometime in the winter time, so we only had about 6.5, 7 hours of daytime. So we came up with some clever ideas of how to. We had the interior set, which was the interior of the big hut, which was built on the actual exterior location. So that was a fairly easy thing to light night for day, but then that wasn't actually enough for us to shoot. So I think the whole sequence of the kids turning into the dead and then killing one of the actors, that was all lit night for day. It wasn't a huge area, but it was a pretty big lighting setup just so that we maximize our days, really.
What sort of what would have been keying that then? What would have been your main source for something like that?
Well, I mean, for the interior, I believe we had, I think I had something like 2 18Ks going through the top opening of the thing, probably one softened off and one hard, and then I had smaller sources, probably, I would reckon it's probably 6Ks all around the walls outside, going soft through diffusions to sort of give the impression that there's daylight outside. And for the exterior night for day scene, I believe we must have had a softbox on a crane with either a balloon, or it wasn't sky panels then, so it must have been a balloon, to give a general ambient, and then probably we had, I would reckon, 18K soft around just to give a general backlight and an edge.
So we're going to come to some of these questions that are getting voted up now, and I've just got one more before we go in. I'm seeing where the votes are going. I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying about the DIT and how important your DIT is. Could you expand a little bit for us on what the DIT is doing for you, and what that great DIT delivers from your perspective?
Well, I think I think that's a very individual and personal question and thing for that, you know, that anyone has to sort of decipher themselves, so to say, what makes that relationship. You know, I also know DOPs who don't really like working with DITs, and obviously when you're shooting film, you don't have that. So, but for me personally, you know, for me, it kind of, I love shooting film. But when it came to shooting digital, it kind of adds something to me and my work, I think, that I couldn't get any other way. And so, you know, I mean, there's many aspects for me. I mean, one's a technical thing for me because I'm not very technical. I don't really like the technical aspect of everything. Ian is a genius when it comes to technical things. So if there's ever anything that I need to know, he's going to be there too. But that's just one small thing. You know, creatively, he adds a whole other dimension to what I'm doing. You know, he has creative ideas. We talk about things that I'm doing. We talk about the lighting setups. You know, I really feel like he's sort of adding another dimension to me as a cinematographer, and he's making my job easier. Just like Jamie as a focus puller or Bocher, when I have them who I trust and love, there's a certain aspect that I don't have to worry about at all, and it just makes you feel more at ease, and it makes you able to think about other things much more, you know. So I think it's a very personal thing, but definitely with Ian, I feel like, you know, yeah, I feel like it's better stuff. And also, you know, when things go wrong, like for example, the dark episode of season 8, episode 3, the one that everybody was complaining about, I'll just say, well, it was Ian's fault. You know, he made it too dark.
Thank you. So we're going over to the audience questions, and there's been a real surge in the voting. And there's 2 questions that sort of parallel each other right at the top, and they're both about leaving film school, which I know is a pressing issue for a number of our students as they approach the latter part of their year. And so I'll combine these 2. So one of them is, hi Fabian, what did you do after graduating from the Northern Film School to kickstart your career? I think there was a bit of that was touched on earlier, but then the next one follows that up and says, do you have any advice for someone trying to get their first job as a camera trainee? Where should you look and how should you prepare? So yeah, people leaving film school, any top tips?
I mean, it's a big question, and unfortunately, I would love to be able to give like the one answer. There isn't that. It's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, first of all, I didn't prepare myself for it when I finished the film school. I prepared myself while I was at film school. So I was constantly trying to do things constantly trying to work on what's going to happen in the future and how it's going to happen. Obviously, you can't predict it, but you can. I'm a strong believer that you get what you put in. I'm a strong believer in hard work, and so I think the harder you work, the more chances you have to get somewhere. There's also, you know, you have to get to know people, and so, for example, it takes a lot of time, a long time, and it takes trust for people to get to know you and to trust you to do something. So, like I said, you know, I think I must have driven the Provision guys crazy. You know, I must have gone down there 4 or 5 times a week. And if anyone is listening now, they'll be laughing because they know I literally drove them mad. I always went there. I always said hello, even if I had nothing to do. I always ask for a camera, can I have this or can I have that, and all of that. And they were just super, super supportive. They also thought I was probably mad because I was constantly doing stuff. I know my friends, certainly, Bocher and other people, thought I was crazy. Even by the time when I'd started to become a DP after Spooks, I remember I was shooting Hustle in Birmingham, which is obviously a 2.5, 3-hour drive from Leeds. So on a Sunday night or Monday morning, I would get in the car from Leeds and I would drive to Birmingham. I would shoot Monday to Friday on a 12-hour day for Hustle. on a Friday night, 7 o'clock on wrap time. I would drive back to Leeds. We'd get to Leeds for about 10:30, and most of the time I would go into some kind of night shoot for a short film, or like a little commercial that I was doing with my friends, you know, and we would shoot the whole weekend, and then I would drive back to Birmingham and continue the sort of day job, you know. So I really put in. I think I can honestly say I put in the hours, and then it's also about, like I said, trust and getting to know people. You know, for a long time, I used to go to London once a month, once every 2 months with my DVD, which a lot of the students these days won't even know what a DVD is. And I was carrying my little DVD show reel, and I was going to all the production companies in London, and I would hand them to the same secretary again, and I would say, hey, it's me again, here's my show reel, can you please give that to someone so they can watch it? And they would say yes, and I know that they probably wouldn't, and they would put it in the shelf where they had hundreds of other DVD show reels and stuff like this. But I kept doing it, and I kept calling them, and I kept emailing them. And so by the time I had something on my CV that I could actually show off with, like Spook Squad 9, all the other people they kind of had heard of me, or they'd known me. They were like, oh, this is the kid who was, you know, constantly came by saying hello or doing this or doing that. So I just think, you know, the best tip I can give, I think, is you gotta be yourself, try and be yourself. And just put in the work, because that's how I think that's how it happens. I mean, for example, with Mark Wordsworth, you know, Mark was an incredibly talented director, and we were doing lots of music videos. And suddenly, one of the music videos, he had an agent within, you know, it was a low budget thing. The set was built by all of us and all of our friends. We probably had 500 quid in the budget for that music video, but it was so good and clever that he got an agent from it. You know, so it can happen anyway, anytime. I think you just have to never give up and just keep trying, keep working hard.
Thank you. So heading up the voting list here, do you have much involvement in post-production, or is your job pretty much over once you've wrapped?
Again, that's a personal thing. I think everybody probably sees that differently. For me personally, it was always a big thing. I have a big love for editing, even though I could never do it as a job. But I admire editors, and I do find the whole post-production process very interesting. So every time I'm filming something, throughout the whole shoot, I would always be in touch with the editors, because I'm interested to know, how does my composition cut? How does it edit? How does it work? Does it work? Does it not work? So I've got a constant dialogue going on with those guys. And even when the job's finished, yes, because we finish, when we wrap, that's the cinematographer's gone, and by the time they do the editing and the sound and everything, we're normally on a different job. I would still make sure, even though I'm working on something else, that I stay in touch, and I would be emailing or calling the editors just to see how it goes. I would speak to the director, see if they could send me like a rough cut. You know, because there's things that you know on the shoot that really worked well. You want to make sure that it's been put in, maybe, hopefully. So all of that. And then especially now with visual effects, you know, I'm always trying to make sure that, you know, the things that were discussed during the shoot are actually being implemented. So I would constantly speak to visual effects and get updates and see how that goes. So yes, personally for me, I would try and be as involved as I can be in the post-production. And I think that's a good thing.
And another, I mean, I don't think I'm going to have to ask any of my questions, because there are so many great questions coming in. What qualities do you look for in a gaffer?
It's a good question. I mean, the quality that I look for the most in anyone when it comes to my film crew is on a much more personal level. I want nice people, because you spend every day together for hours on end. I want nice people. I want people that I can have a beer with. I want people that I can have a chat with. I want people that I can have a laugh with. You know, and I believe in giving people chances, and so the qualities in the gaffer is I think, as with any of them, is much more on a personal level. Obviously, you have to know what you're doing. I mean, Jamie Phillips is, you know, he's a great focus puller, but that's not. He needs to be a good focus puller. He needs to know what he's doing. But what makes him so good is not the focus pulling part. It's the fact that it's how he is personally. It's how he is with the crew, how he treats the other crew members, how he runs a team. And that's, I think, the same with the gaffer. You know, the gaffer is how they run their team and how you work with them. And so I'm not sure whether I answered that question very well, but yeah, that's what I look for.
I think you did. The people qualities is the reality of working long hours with people, and we have to be able to get along. And you've just been talking about 12-hour days and long shifts. That's a lot of time spent closely together. We've got a couple of lighter ones here. Now, I know this is a difficult one to answer. I would struggle with this one, so maybe it could just be a few references. I don't know. But one of the questions is, in your opinion, who is the greatest cinematographer of all time? Or you could broaden that out to a few inspirational ones if you prefer.
Well, I mean, I don't think that is a question that's actually answerable. I don't think you can answer that. I mean, there is so many amazing cinematographers. So, you know, I don't know that I can't answer that question. It's one of the things that makes cinematography such a challenge and such a creative challenge and such a beautiful thing, is that, you know, everyone is different. Everyone does things differently, even if it's on the minutest levels. You know, everyone is different. It's art. It's different. You know, I wouldn't want to say.
Fair enough.
Could.
That's an awkward one. They always throw me questions like that.
You know, one thing you can say, for example, is that, you know, obviously there is people, but again, there's a lot of people that stand out. I mean, we can all agree that Roger Deakins certainly stands out. There's also many other people that stand out with him, Bob Richardson or Lubetsky, and all the old masters who are like, you know, we don't even mention them anymore these days, which is mad, really. But obviously there is people that stand out, but I don't think you could pick out one. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So here's another quite a light one, but it's got a lot of votes. What's the most fun you've had on a set? So a sort of memorable fun moment on set.
You know, I hate to say it, but, you know, I have fun every day. You know, I mean, obviously there's, you know, it's, you know, I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful that I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, this has been, you know, the only person who's ever sums up right is Leonard Cohen. He said, when he said on one of his last concerts, he said, "I'm just a kid with a crazy dream," and that's exactly how I feel, because I've had this kind of dream since I was a kid, and I still feel like that, you know. And so there's so many fun memories, you know, being on a set. I mean, going from really small things. I remember shooting The White Queen, which was a job I did not enjoy, but I had a great time over in Belgium for a few months. And I remember during the lunch hour, I was hiding the dolly. We were shooting in some kind of dungeon. I was hiding the dolly from the grips. I pushed it into a very dark corner. And I remember after lunch, I said, "Oh, we're doing this dolly shot," and the grips couldn't find the dolly for about an hour. and it was hilarious. I don't think I stopped laughing for a whole day afterwards. But yeah, there's so many fun moments. It's really hard to pick one.
So coming back a little bit more into the sort of serious business, how do you plan for a big battle scene, something like Battle of the Bastards, which is just so big? How do you even start planning for something like that?
I think I was lucky because the size of each production kind of, it gradually went up, so you kind of get used to it without, you don't really think about it that much anymore. But with anything like that, it starts very small, and you start by reading the script, and you start by visualizing of how that could work, and then you do the same thing with the director, and the two of you talk about it, and you decide on how you want to do it, and then you bring in the first assistant director probably to actually. You start thinking about timing. Okay, how does this work? How can we make this work within the time that we have? How many days do we need? How much time do we need? And then, one of the great things about the film industry, and that's one of the things I love so much about it, again, is the collaborative aspect of it, and working with people. Working with my gaffer, working with my camera team, working with the directors, the production, the grips, the operators, everybody, working with the whole team to figure out the best way of doing it. And sometimes that can be quite tough because you're fighting a lot of things. Sometimes you're fighting the money. I mean, money is never enough, no matter what you do. Sometimes you're fighting the light. You're struggling with the actor's availability or whatever. So there's always something that you fight. But when it comes to Battle of the Bastards or something of that size, when you have, Battle of the Bastards, we had about 500 extras. We had 60 horses, 60 stunt riders, about 80 stuntmen, a crew of about 250 people, visual effects, special effects, trekking vehicles, galloping horses, and all of it was shooting in the field in Ireland, with Northern Ireland, with the weather being very unpredictable. So we had sunshine, rain, snow, all in one day, and that for 17 days. It kind of becomes a little bit like a military operation where we are so planned by day one. We've planned everything. So when we know exactly, I know exactly, A camera is doing this, B camera is doing this, C camera is doing this. While we shoot this, the C camera was over there and sets up for this, and this. Everything is planned meticulously. With hopefully, what I'm always trying to do is I'm always trying to have a certain bit of leeway in there so that you can be spontaneous and intuitive on the day. But you have to plan it because, like I said, even on a show like this with that money, with that budget, you're shooting constantly. There's never a time where you're not doing anything.
There's some questions have come in following up what you're just saying now about the multi-camera, the A cam, B cam, C cam, or maybe more. How does that change things for you, having to work with multi-cameras, and does that affect your lighting and your approach and the work that you have to do to make things happen?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with I basically grew up with multiple camera shooting. When I was talking about doing all of those shows for Kudos, it was pretty standard shooting 2 cameras. And I've got to admit myself that I do love shooting multiple cameras. I do love a challenge. I like to challenge myself from a lighting perspective. Obviously, there's always moments where you can't light for 2 cameras, or multiple cameras becomes has a negative effect on everything else, whether it's the lighting or the choreography. So at that point, you need to be wise enough to step back and say, look, this is a 1 camera setup because I don't want to compromise the movement or the choreography or the lighting by putting another camera. But I do love the challenge of shooting 2 cameras, and I've been doing it a lot. I mean, And on season 8 of Thrones, I was pretty much shooting 4 cameras all the time, and even the night stuff was shot on mostly 3 or 4 cameras. So that's difficult, but it's a challenge.
Thank you. So here's one. What was the collaborative process like working with Zack Snyder, who already had such a distinct and recognizable visual style? And maybe you could tell us, if Zack has told you, how he came to choose to work with yourself.
Well, I don't think he ever told me, but he was a big fan of Game of Thrones. He is a big fan of Game of Thrones, and he loved my episodes. And I remember when I had my first meeting with him, we had a really great chat, and I came into the office and I said, "Look, Zack, we had a really nice chat for about an hour and a half. And when I left, I said, "Look, Zack, it was great meeting you. I have no idea why you called me in here, but thank you, and good luck, because I never expected to get this job." And I also knew from my agents that they were interviewing many DPs who had done movies of this scale before. So it seemed pretty unrealistic to me to get this job. But yeah, I did get a job, and I think Game of Thrones and my episodes of Game of Thrones had a lot to do with it. So I'm very thankful for that. And when it comes to working with Zack, I mean, it was just an incredible experience. I mean, I've always been a fan of Zack Snyder. Like or hate his films, you can definitely say that he's a visionary, and he's definitely created a style that's that we hadn't seen before, and he does that style very well. And so for me, it was a dream come true to work with someone like him. You know, someone of his sort of stature and someone of his experience, and so you know, it was interesting because when I met him and we started prep, he's a great artist. He draws incredibly well, and he had a storyboard book which was probably this thick, and he had storyboarded himself the whole film, and it was beautiful storyboards. And so I thought, you know, he was used to shooting one camera, so he shot all his movies on one camera, and here I was coming from a low budget Northern Film School background, loving shooting multiple cameras. So I thought, well, that's going to be a different experience, but of course, you know, it's great because you learn from everything. And so we started working and prepping, and one day I said to him, "Look, Zack, what do you think of this idea? I bring in a second camera, which I will operate. I'll bring in my focus puller, Jamie Phillips, because he kind of knows me and he knows the way I work. And we'll start shooting. And if I see anything that I think would work with a second camera, if I can get something, I will offer it to you. And if you like it, then it's great. And if you don't like it, then just say no, and we won't do it." And he agreed. And so I talked to production. We got a second camera. We got Jamie on board, grips and everyone. So everything was on board. We had a 2-camera package, and we started shooting. And I expected probably that maybe, you know, I'd do like maybe 2-3 shots a week on the second camera. And by week 2, when I wasn't doing a second camera, he was going, "Where's my big camera?" And so I think he loved it, and I loved it because I love operating, and I got to operate on that show, and we were doing a lot of shots. And having seen the final movie, now the actual Zack's movie, there's a lot of my shots in there of the big camera, so it's great, and it was a really great relationship. So to answer the question, you know, he knows what he wants. He's a really great, and he's also a super nice person, but he's a great artist. But he's also, he knows what he wants. At the same time, he gives you freedom to suggest things. And if he likes your ideas, or if he thinks they're better, he'll do them. And to me, that's the qualities of a great director, is someone who knows what they want, but who's also open enough for other ideas. And that's what Zack is.
So is that him converted now? He'll be multi-cameras from now on, probably, by the sounds of it.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I hope he enjoyed it. He never told me he didn't, so.
So someone's asked here, and it's got a few votes, this one. Can you tell us about your failures, or a failure, and or a most challenging moment in your career?
Well, I mean, you sort of encounter failures every single day. The biggest failure is not accepting your failures, which you kind of tend to do in the beginning, and the older you get, and the more you learn, you sort of accept it. I think, you know, I think failures and mistakes are a very good thing. I learned that very early on, and I've accepted that very early on. I always think that it's only mistakes and failures that you learn from. And you make mistakes every single day of your life. You know, there's so many mistakes I make every day when it comes to lighting, or things that I could have done better or different, or things I've tried. So again, I think there's, you know, it's hard to pick out particular failures, because even the bad things. I mean, you know, we talk about all the good things in that I've done, you know, like Sherlock and Game of Thrones and things like that. We don't mention the many more terrible things that I've done, and I've done some terrible TV shows, you know, terrible scripts, terrible acting, terrible. I mean, I don't want to say cinematography, but you know, it wasn't the best. And there's been lots of that. You know, I've done lots of that. But and sometimes in the moment I thought, my God, why did I say yes to this job? I should have never said yes to this job. But then very quickly I realized, but you know what? Here I am complaining about this job, but I'm working, I'm gaining experience, I'm making a living, and I can honestly say that from all of those jobs, especially the jobs that I've hated, that I thought were terrible, those are the jobs that I learned the most from. Because you realize what you don't want to do, you realize how not to do things, and you really look at it, you really think about it properly. If I look at the good stuff, there's nothing I'm going to take away from it to learn, really. It's the bad stuff really that makes you learn much faster and better, I think. So in the end, I've quickly come to realize that, you know, I appreciate all these bad decisions I've made, because first of all, you can't change them. So what's the point in wishing that you could change them? It's much better to just look back on them and take away the good things from them. And there's always something good to take away from. Like if it's just you've met someone, you've met a focus puller or someone or a director that you really like to work with, and that relationship, you know, carries on for ages. You know, there's always something good to take away from, especially from those kind of jobs. So accept your failures. The quicker you do that, the better.
Well, I think that's a big vote for, you know, what you were saying about shooting so much. Experiments, learn from the failures, and move on. It's fantastic.
Well, I think it's also, you know, I mean, I got asked this recently, and I was thinking about this actually, because, you know, yes, I've done all these. You know, sometimes you think, oh, I wish I hadn't done this, or I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had, you know, waited or whatever. I'm now at a time, because now I'm, you know, I'm over 40 now. I've got a family now. I've got a baby now. You know, the fact that I have done all of this stuff before in the first 20 years, it also means that now I can be. It's given me that kind of extra bit of where I can just be like, okay, now I don't work every day now. I can actually choose it a bit more. So it's given me the benefit of that, you know, which is something that I now really cherish, you know.
We have a question that has surged out ahead of the others 3 times more than the next one. It's just shot up. They keep moving in front of my eyes here. How much involvement did you have in the latest Justice League reshoots?
Well, the latest Justice League reshoots were the ones in 2019. They were for the Zack Snyder version, for the Zack Snyder Justice League, and they were only 2 days. And unfortunately, due to COVID restriction and travel and everything, I didn't go to LA for those couple of days. I spoke to Zach before and after, but I actually didn't shoot them purely because it was impossible to travel, unfortunately. So I knew what they were shooting, we talked about it, but I wasn't physically there.
Okay, so now here's one, I'm not sure. There's a question asking about the First Steps cinematography program, and if you could tell us about that.
Well, I mean, this is something that, so I've always been very, I found my love in supporting people, I guess you can call it. And so for the past 10 years or so, I've always been very, you know, supportive and helping people to either get into the industry or move on in the industry or whatever. And I've been doing that a lot off my own back, so to say, because I get a lot of people contacting me through email or Instagram or whatever it is with questions. And I've done it a lot as well in the last sort of 6 years with organizations like BAFTA. I'm a BAFTA mentor, so to say. I've been doing it with the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers. I've got a couple of mentees through them. And so, you know, I've been doing this a lot, and obviously I've been doing a lot of those kind of master classes and things. It's something that I really enjoy because you kind of learn a lot about yourself as well. And so I've been going back to my film school in Denmark. I've been probably going back there every year for the last few years, apart from last year when with COVID. And so First Steps Cinematography is like this initiative that I set up. It's in its very early stages, but it's been something that I've been thinking and pondering about for a long time now. And probably a couple of years ago, I came up with First Steps Cinematography. And now this project that I'm doing currently, I talked to the studio and the production about it, and they have been very supportive in helping me with it. And so we're going to take on, over the course of 10 months, we're going to take on 10 trainees or placements for 2 or 3 weeks each to sort of shadow the camera department or the cinematographer, depending on what the people want to get into. So yeah, it's an initiative that I've set up that I want to. I'm trying to sort of make it into a bigger thing. I've been working on the website. I've been working on how I can branch it out. I've had lots of interest from other DPs, which has been great. So I kind of want it to become like a platform that people can apply to, and then I can either bring them on myself or I can give them to other productions and other DPs for placements. You know, the industry can be quite a daunting thing in the beginning. You know, it's a big industry with lots of unknowns, and the one thing I didn't have when I was younger was a mentor. I never had anyone that I kind of could call up to and say, look, what do you do in this situation? What should I do here? You know, and it's many aspects. It's whether you should take a certain job. It's money things. You know, I mean, I got probably done in for money a lot of the time when I was younger because I didn't know. You know, and you're kind of keen to work, but so it's a lot of things. I mean, I always joke with Jonathan Freeman, who's one of the DPs on Game of Thrones. He's always been a DP that I've admired a lot, and obviously we met when we were both DPing Game of Thrones, and I always joke with him that he's become my first mentor, and he still is my first mentor. So I always think it's nice to have someone that you can, you know, just shoot them an email and be like, hey, what do you think about this? So that's the reasoning behind it.
Do you have a date when you expect it all to go live and people can be applying?
Oh no, it's already live and people have been applying. It's been incredible. We've had 225, I think, applications in the last 10 days. It's been pretty mad, and I've been spending my time. I'm prepping right now So I'm spending my evenings for a couple of hours going through everything. But it's been great. We had a lot of applications, and hopefully by the 29th of this month, we're going to have 10 people chosen to come and join me on this next job. But like I said, I've already had a meeting with some other DPs who want to try and implement it on their productions. So there will be more people that can come off to other productions. And I've just been speaking to the BSc yesterday. Hopefully they will, at some point when they're a meeting, maybe I can get them involved. So it'd just be nice to, yeah, it's just something that's very close to my heart. So I'd love to continue it.
That is fantastic. Great opportunity for filmmakers. Are you able to tell us a little bit about what you're working on at the moment, or what you've got coming up next? Fair enough. That's fine. We haven't got long left. We've probably got another 5 or 6 minutes. Let's see if we can get a couple of questions in here. Could you tell us about working with production design? What is the cinematographer relationship to production design? How closely do you have to work together?
Very close, like with every other department. I mean, you know, production design is a huge element of cinematography, and with, you know, I always say that if you're in a good location, if you're in a good set, you don't have to do much to make that look good. Production design is a huge aspect of this job, and again, the collaboration with the designer is lovely, and their team. I've been spending a lot of time with my production designer right now and his team to go through things, because it's all about colors, texture. You know, it's much less about the technical aspect of, okay, can we make a door here or window there? It's all the small detail that when that comes together makes the great image.
Green screen. Could you talk a little bit about green screen? There's been a couple of questions asking about how one goes about it, or tips for shooting with green screen.
Yeah, obviously it's very different. I mean, I love both. You know, I love shooting on location. I love the challenges that you get on a location shoot, and equally, I love the challenges you get from a green screen shoot. It can become very, you know, like on Justice League when you're doing it for 85 days. It's a bit much sometimes, but I love it. I love collaborating with people, and I love working with people. And if you work with a good visual effects team, it's great fun, and it's a great challenge, and there's a lot of things that you can do. I love working with actors and on green screen and sort of talking to them about the world that they're going to be in, for them to understand what this will be. Again, it's like everything else. It needs good communication and good planning, and away you go.
So we have one here about how do you prep for your next job whilst you are currently shooting long hours on the current job? And I'd like to chuck in there, how much do you read the script?
I normally read the script once, and then I try not to read it for ages. I read it once, and then I have lots of ideas, and then I have lots of meetings about those ideas, and where you go more like through certain scenes. And then I would probably read the script again as a whole just before you start shooting. What was the other question, sorry? Oh, sorry, you muted.
Yeah, no, I lost it on my list there. It was about the pre-production while you're already busy on a shoot. So you're already busy on a shoot, and how can you go about prepping for another one, or do they follow after each other? And
no, you don't really. I mean, you wouldn't really do that. You know, you would finish one job and then you would start prepping the other. It's very rare that you would. It's very rare that you would do that.
Fair enough. Just winding back, because we're sort of very close to the end, but we talked a little bit about students leaving film school. How about students who are just arriving at film school? Would you have any tips for them? How do they make the most of their 3 years at film school?
That's a very good question, and I always say one thing. Assume that every, I'm sorry to say this, assume that every film school is rubbish. It doesn't matter whether you're in the greatest film school or the worst film school, whatever that means. A good film school is made up by the people who were there at that film school. The teachers and the students. And if you need to find yourself a bunch of people in your year that you do stuff with, and you'll be flying. That's my personal experience, and that's my personal opinion. It doesn't matter what the place is, you have to make the best out of it yourself. I can honestly say, when I was at the Northern Film School, it wasn't the best of places from any kind, like, we didn't have many outside lectures. In fact, I don't think we had any back then. We didn't have any, equipment-wise, it wasn't great, and I've heard amazing things about how the film school has changed in the recent years, which is fantastic. But back then it was, a difficult thing, and I can say that because I've also gone to the Prague film school, the FAMU, which was supposedly one of the best film schools, and I had a terrible time there. So, it doesn't matter that, all of that kind of, oh, this is great or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it's really about what you make out of it personally. And for me, like I said, I met people there. Those people have changed my life. I mean, Nick Wright there was a teacher there back then. He was running the film school. He was an amazing character, very interesting guy. He was great. And I met people like Mark Wordsworth and Borja and James and Marco, and all of those guys made that for me. And we had the same passion, the same love for filmmaking, we had the same dreams, and that kind of gives you that initiative and that, okay, we've got to go and do something. And so that gives you the experience, because you constantly are shooting, you're constantly doing things.
I've got a slight glitch on my end here. I'm hoping that that's all working right. Fantastic to hear that about Nick Wright, who's sadly departed this life now. He was one of my first teachers at Bournemouth many years ago, and we did a shoot together. We went to the Caribbean together for 3 weeks for a shoot some years later. Fantastic fella. We are unfortunately at the end here. I would love to, and I'm sure our audience would love to have you here for many more hours. We'd love to have you here, doing a masterclass in person, and it could probably go on for days on end. But unfortunately, we're on a limited time. I must.
When it's back together, when everything's back and safe, I'd love to come up. I haven't been up to Leeds. I miss Leeds. I'd love to come up.
It would be fantastic. You would be most welcome. Let's arrange that. And I must, on behalf of everyone, we can't have the usual round of applause, but I must thank you. It's been fantastic, Fabian. Thank you very much. Absolutely brilliant. And I believe I better hand over to Professor Rob Shale before we suddenly get cut off from the meeting. And thank everybody for attending. Thank you all for being here and asking such great questions.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you all. Yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Mark. That was absolutely wonderful. Just to bring things to a close, I just want to say a huge thank you to Fabian for kindly giving us his time today for such a fantastic discussion.